In today's video, my top 3 don'ts of contest prep.
All by myself.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Revelia from ProPhysique.com. I got my man Jorge, George Rosado here, Fitness IQ, and we're gonna do a special video today. We're gonna do the 3 biggest mistakes that I feel you can make in contest prep. Now, George and I decided to do a tandem video. So in the description box below is a link to the video on his channel. What's cool is we each made a list and we've had different thoughts on what were some of the biggest mistakes. Yeah. So it worked out perfectly. He's got 3, I've got 3. We're gonna do my 3 on my channel, starting with the first one. The first one that I feel is the most important thing you can do in prep, the biggest mistake you can avoid, is not to try to pick the weight you wanna be on stage.
Absolutely.
So much comes into play with this. Now, as an experienced prep coach who's worked with hundreds of competitors over the last 5 years, I have a pretty good idea. But even so, I still do not say this is with absolute certainty the weight you're going to be on stage. Let's talk about our work together.
Absolutely.
Our preps together.
Absolutely.
What do you recall about the process as far as weight's concerned?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you specifically always told me this is kind of the weight that we're potentially shooting for, but you never gave me a set weight like, hey, this is what we're gonna be at. Right. Just because, again, I think you were doing that because, again, uncertainties, and because you just didn't want me to solidly set my expectations to that specific weight and then just stress myself out. It's kind of the same thing with powerlifting, right? Like you pick, like you have these numbers that you want to hit in your head, but it's just like
the same.
You want to take, again, progress for progress and the PRs for what they are, opposed to like being upset because you had these numbers that you had in your mind, but you didn't take into consideration all of these other variables that are happening over here, right? That are affecting that. So what do you think are some like major variables that might potentially affect the weight that you are going to be on stage?
Well, the most important thing is history. So have we actually seen what stage condition looks like for this person?
Absolutely.
The other thing is like how well process of prep goes, If you're kind of new to competing, you might not lose all that much weight. Your body composition might actually improve a little bit. If you've been competing for years, you're gonna be pretty steady throughout prep and body fat's gonna come off at a pretty steady pace. We're gonna kind of have a better idea. The reason I don't like to pick a weight that you're going to be is because it sets an expectation like, okay, when I reach this weight, I'm good. But what we're going for is not what you weigh, because the judges do not look at the scale on stage.
Absolutely.
And especially for men, you can get kind of hung up with like, I want to be 200 pounds on stage, and you feel like if you're below that you're, half the man you should be, because 190 is just not. When in reality, when you get to that gnarly conditioning, every bit that you get leaner, every pound you drop, you look more and more impressive on stage. I always point to people like Brian Whitaker, who gets on stage in the low 160s, but to see him in person blows your mind whole. So I never like to tell people pick a weight, because again, we're going for the look. Whether it's bikini, whether it's figure, whether it's classic physique, men's physique, bodybuilding. Gotcha. Don't go for the weight, go for the look. And if you're new to this, be prepared to see some weights that you ain't seen since high school.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I remember that. Like, I remember when I kind of had this on my head, like, hey, I kind of want to be 170 on stage. And when I got to that weight, I'm like, I think we might need, I got to 165, I'm like, I think we might need to shoot even lower. I had to get down all the way to like 160 to truly see the conditioning that we were seeking for, not only for, specifically for the to be competitive up on a national stage when we competed at nationals, because
you got to have all the piano wire in your obliques. Absolutely. You got to have all the separation striations in your delts.
Absolutely.
Just because you got some abs, don't think you're ready for stage.
Yeah.
So we'll get into my second one, which kind of parlays into the first one, and that is, don't get caught up during prep in thinking you've lost strength and that you need to lift lighter. There's an old adage, you high reps for cuts. That's bullshit. It's been disproven completely. Also, the fact is we don't lose muscle during prep. Muscle loss is very difficult. Even if you stop lifting weights for 3 weeks, your body loses no muscle, okay? But during contest prep, the issue is we're on reduced calories, increased cardio. So there is a greater risk for muscle loss. What we're really seeing in prep is a decrease in performance.
Absolutely.
Not muscle size. So let's talk about, again, I like having a client here for this, because what were our ideals during contest prep as the show approached? As far as like in the gym.
In terms of performance?
Yeah, training in the gym. Like what were we looking for?
I think the goal that we always kind of discussed was just to make sure that we're able to keep the loads relatively heavy in order to prevent losing muscle and just kind of, or losing strength. So keeping as much strength as possible in order to be able to perform in the gym. But regardless, like you're still going to see some decrease in performance just because, I mean, energy levels, obviously your leverages change.
I think that's probably the biggest thing to look for in prep is when you have to accept, okay, you're not recovering as well, your leverages have changed, your energy drops quickly just because, you know, you're not fully, you don't have a lot of nutrition going on, so you burn through calories and substrates quickly. So workout sessions might not be good. This is when it's important to talk to your coach about, okay, maybe we need to make the sessions shorter when they're high intense, and just pay attention to variables. Yeah, maybe more frequent deloading.
Less volume in one session, but just kind of
my favorite thing to do is auto-regulate.
Yeah,
like when I'm in prep,
100%.
If I go in the gym and it's supposed to be a high rep day and I'm warming up and things are flying, I'll call an audible and go heavy that day because I'm like, okay, my body's ready to lift heavy, and vice versa. If I'm lifting heavy that day, I'll go high rep if it feels like crap.
I think it also depends like where you are in prep, right? Because during the beginning of the prep, like you still have
you should not be losing strength.
Like some people actually even get stronger.
I definitely hit some PRs.
Yeah, I've definitely hit some PRs
all the way up until it gets gnarly.
And then once things start getting a little bit, you know, aggressive, then that's when you want to be a little bit more cautious just because of injury preventions, right? Like you're not recovering as well, so it doesn't make sense for you to go in there and max out or do triples. Again, we're going here for hypertrophy. We're trying to maintain a lot of that fullness, especially for we're talking about contest prep specifically here for physique endeavors. So we're trying to maintain a lot of this muscle, and that's why we, for the most part, want to hit more of a, let's say, a power building style, right? Like maybe that first or two compound movements are going to be a little bit on the lower side, 6 to 8 reps, and then the final movements are going to be accessory, just isolation movements to really get majority of the activation that on each muscle group that don't necessarily get as much with these bigger compound movements.
100% agree. 100% agree. And so for the last one, for the biggest 3 mistakes I want to touch on is probably not high on a lot of people's priority list. And actually, when I wrote it down, I thought it was kind of silly. But the more I thought about it, the more as I've gotten into high-level coaching people on the national and pro stage, this is the biggest variable that I can pay attention to when I'm at a show, and that is stage presence. Whatever that means for your division. Are you in men's physique? Are you in bikini? Are you in bodybuilding, classic physique, figure? Whatever that means. Stage presence is something that you need to start paying attention to months out from a show. For bodybuilding, holding those poses, being static while flexing, if you're not conditioned to do that, you will look like a fool the day of the show. Not to mention where your feet need to be, where your arms need to be, what your body position should look like for each pose. If you're not ready weeks out, you're gonna look foolish on stage. If it's bikini, it's hair, makeup, tan, your suit, everything that comes down to it, owning that, being super confident. I've had a lot of girls come over here and put some heels on and walk around and look like Bambi. If you're not comfortable in your heels, you need to be wearing them every day for like half hour, an hour, weeks, months out from a show, right? These are the things that make us separate from people that just look good on stage.
Yeah, absolutely. As
someone who promotes a show, has judged shows, has watched George compete, and I even will say, the bodybuilding show that I promote, he won it a couple years ago, but you struggled with the posing because you were a men's physique guy.
Yeah, that was...
You were like
there was a couple times up there when I was like, fuck.
That's it, you were done. Yeah, like he was shaking,
like I wasn't in condition at all.
No. So that kind of stuff, when you're judging a show, it just pours out from the competitor. You can tell when someone walks out and they own it and they know it, and it does have an impact. As much as this is a physique sport, it's still a contest, a competition, and you want to take care of all the little things you can do, whatever your division is. So I think that's going to be it for us today. Again, we got another 3 on George's channel. They're completely different, and that's what I love about them. We had completely different thoughts on this. But for today's video, just to recap, don't predict what your weight will be. Give yourself a range, but be willing to go lower if you need to, because conditioning is truly what separates competitors. Don't just start lifting light because you're in contest prep. What builds muscle keeps muscle. And make sure you're taking care of what you need to take care of for stage presence to get the win. Don't waste your time dieting for a show only to show up and not present your package the best you can. That's going to be it for us today, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Paul, and this is George.
All right, guys.
all by myself.